Well, nice to meet everybody. My name is Dan Delitzer. I work at IDEO Collab Ventures, which is an early stage venture fund. We invest in mostly pre-seed and seed stage deals, entirely focused on crypto. And we're housed within IDEO, which is a global design firm. We've got about 700 people. They're the ones who popularized the concept of human-centered design and design thinking. And we kind of got into blockchain stuff about 5 years ago, which is how I joined. I was at MIT for grad school, started the MIT Bitcoin Club back in 2013, and have basically been pretty deep down the crypto rabbit hole ever since. And what I'm excited to, I guess, talk a little bit about today, and hopefully open up for discussion as well. I don't have a big prepared talk. It's an area that I've been focused on quite a lot recently, and wanted to basically bounce the ideas off a group of other smart people who I might not otherwise be talking to on a daily basis. So the idea is around value capture in DeFi. And this feels like a very strange day when I proposed this talk topic. I did not expect what happened yesterday, especially with regards to the maker ecosystem specifically. So to get started, what I wanted to do is kind of talk about different models for tokens from value capture, right? So if we look back to 2017, during the ICO craze, the dominant model that a lot of teams were pursuing was just related to having what was called a utility token. We'll have a specific token for our protocol or application. People will buy that token and use to pay for services from either other users or directly from the protocol in this token. It seemed pretty dumb. It has proved to largely be pretty dumb. There maybe are some edge cases where I can see it working, but really, it's a lot of that's about a social contract. There's nothing that is creating any kind of like hard value capture within that. And plenty of very intelligent people have written about essentially velocity problems with that, especially as we're getting better dexes and more liquidity and the ability to just convert between tokens very quickly and very cheaply has come about. It just doesn't make sense to hold a specific token just to interact and make payments for a specific application. Fortunately, we have seen a lot of evolution since 2017. One of the models that I think was recognized pretty early on as making sense was the what I like to call the taxi medallion model. So looking at things like Augur, where holding this token gives you a right to perform certain work and earn fees that are not necessarily denominated in that token. They can be denominated in ETH or DAI or any asset really. And that made sense, right? You want to bound the number of people and who can stake to be able to participate in resolving disputes on Augur, because it's actually more secure to do it that way than have people just straight up stake ETH. So I do like those models. I do think they have a lot of application, but what we're starting to see now is a shift more towards some new models. And there are the primary model that we've seen kind of in action, I did not expect to see as much in action as it has been, is the maker model. And the maker model involves there being some fee charged, and then essentially there's interest. There's a spread between the rate that is being paid by the borrowers and the rate that's being received by the lenders. And in this case, it's kind of a bit of a head fuck. I think most people here are probably very aware, but the DAI holders, people who actually are like buying and using DAI, are actually the lenders in the maker system. The borrowers are those who are issuing DAI from their vaults in return for locking up their ETH. So it's an interesting two-sided market here. And then obviously the MKR holders are able to say, what should that spread between those two rates be? And we're gonna basically be able to capture that spread. And that I believe will be a similar model applied by Compound to some degree, right? They're going to be likely their kind of risk pool represents, I believe, about 10% of interest paid goes into this risk pool. I would fully expect, I don't have no insider information on this, but I would fully expect that through the governance process, once compound tokens are out there, that the tokens will end up having a claim on that risk pool, at least under certain circumstances. And I want to contrast that with another model that's emerged in DeFi. If you look at things like Kyber or 0x, presumably Uniswap, if at some point they choose to integrate a token, the token exists as a way of taking a piece of every transaction fee that goes through. And while I think it is definitely possible that works, liquidity is very, very sticky. And if you don't believe that liquidity is sticky, you need to look no further than the continued existence of Tether. I believe there's now over 5 billion USDT in circulation. And that's because there's just so much liquidity in USDT-based trading pairs, particularly the BTC USDT trading pair, that there's so much demand for it. It's really hard to migrate the liquidity to another stable coin that might have sounder backing than what we are well aware Tether has. So liquidity is sticky. Perhaps if you charge a reasonable fee that is not too onerous, people are willing to pay that fee. However, my thesis here that I want to test, and I'm be excited if anybody pushes back on this, is that it's much more natural for the MKR and eventually compound style model to accrue value. And the reason for that is that those are what I would like to call a risk token. So as we are now seeing on Wednesday, there's a situation now where the maker system has become under collateralized, and not as a whole, but there's I think about a 4 million DAI debt that needs to get repaid, and it's going to get repaid through inflating the MKR supply and auctioning that off. And I think this is a very, very powerful mechanism, because it is the MKR holders saying, we will be the ones who will backstop all loans, right? And so that provides more assurance to people who are making loans, so DAI holders, through the compound system, because they can look at the MKR market cap and they can understand from that market cap that there is a lot of capital sitting there, people who believe in the system, who don't want it to fail, and that in the case where there is this kind of a failure mode, that the MKR holders will stand behind it, and the market cap of the token becomes a competitive advantage for this protocol, right? If there were, I think maybe an easier way to reason about how that's powerful might be to look more at compound, assuming they end up with a similar model as opposed to maker. Imagine that you've got compound, you've got other things like BZX or Aave or these other lending protocols that are coming up, and you end up in the situation where, sure, you might have better short-term rates on a given protocol, but if the protocol token is being used to backstop potential losses, that effectively adds up to an insurance pool, and that can be a very powerful competitive differentiator, right? Somebody coming in early on can subsidize rates on a pool as a way to encourage people to come in and either borrow or lend, but they're going to have real trouble competing with what I expect to be a pretty massive market cap around once they launch the token. And so if the compound token holders decide to use that token as a backstop for loans in the similar way to what MKR is doing, I believe that creates a very powerful moat for them, because none of those other protocols can easily compete with that in terms of the size of the potential insurance pool that is effectively being provided. And if you think about, I hate talking about efficient markets hypothesis because obvious reasons. But if you look at the purest form of efficient markets hypothesis, it's that you get paid for one thing and one thing only, and that is risk. And so in a situation where token holders are absorbing risk from some of the users of the protocol, there's absolutely the ability to then take fees for doing so, right? You're getting paid as a token holder to absorb that risk. If you contrast that with pure trading protocols like 0x, like Compound, or sorry, 0x, Kyber, or Uniswap, right? There's no risk being absorbed by those token holders. There maybe there's incentives related to them around liquidity, but that's really just kind of time shifting rewards in effect, and getting people to bet on future growth. I think it's a lot easier to make a strong case for value capture around tokens that risk tokens that provide backstops for lending protocols, because they're necessary, they create a better moat, and there's a more natural reason why they should accrue value, because it's not purely rent seeking, right? They're actually, you're saying, hey, you want insurance? You're going to pay for insurance in this way, right? Everyone can feel more secure using this because there's that form of insurance in place. I'm not sure how that then interacts with things like Nexus Mutual and Open and some of these other ways to start acquiring insurance in DeFi, but I think there's definitely a place for protocols like that, and potentially a very, very big place for them. But I think we're going to see more and more anything that is lending based. I would expect to introduce token, and I would expect them to start using the MKR like dilution mechanism as a way of turning their market cap also into a moat, and a powerful incentive mechanism for people to use their liquidity pool as opposed to others. That's the topic I wanted to present, and love to get thoughts and feedback from anybody online.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that or talking about that. Also, if anyone's watching too, please throw comments in YouTube, throw it in, the Jitsi chat or anything if you don't have a mic to participate. No questions? Or do you have any topics you might want to bring up for discussion other than that?
I mean, sure, I'm happy to talk about any topics you guys want. I'm curious, is anybody here planning to participate in the MKR auction on Wednesday? Or would anybody in here consider doing so if there were an easy way to do so?
I think definitely I would if there was an easy way of doing so. I mean, we all saw, I don't know if it's the same thing, but the auctions yesterday that went off for zero DAI. So I think everyone's kind of a little interested in these auctions, but how do you even begin to partake in these types of auctions?
Yeah, although actually I was specifically referring to the MKR auction. So that it is an auction, but it's a different type, right? Okay. So that was auction. Those were auctions in terms of liquidating CDP collateral. This is going to be an auction around. There's something like 4 million, but a 4 million DAI deficit, and so there will be auctions of MKR in, I believe, 50,000 DAI increments on Wednesday. And so there'll be opportunity to bid how many you offer 50K DAI, and the bidding is in terms of how much MKR you're willing to receive, what's the minimum essentially number of MKR that you'd be willing to receive for your 50,000 DAI, and that auction will repeat in 50K DAI increments until the full 4 million or so DAI is repaid. So the expectation, I think, if someone did the math, and I think that if you end up doing that all at like 200 DAI per MKR, then that effectively wipes out all of the MKR burn that's happened to date, and gets us back to the original supply, which would be a really interesting outcome to effectively have like a reset on that front. Yeah, so I'm, for what's worth, Brendan Forrester from Dharma has been leading, putting together this community effort. I think RSA, Ryan John Adams has tweeted about it. There's like a public Google Doc. You can add your name and organization if you're interested in participating. You've got some brilliant engineers who are getting together and figuring out how to do this in a DAO type structure. So basically, if you're willing to commit DAI to be used to buy MKR to ensure that this auction is successful, you can check out that doc, do your diligence. I'm personally putting in about 1,000 DAI to support this effort, and very excited to see how it evolves.
So is there potential then for this to go like very south? For example, say, they're auctioning and people are bidding, but they're not bidding high enough. So the amount of maker they have to mint is like very high, and it might even exceed what we've burnt to date.
I believe that is a possibility. I think there might be some kind of floor set. If this all doesn't work, then what's being discussed, I believe, is using the emergency shutdown switch. I think it's pretty unlikely that's going to happen. It's a possibility, but I think it's really cool what Brennan's been spearheading in terms of like rallying the community, saying like, look, we believe that the maker system works and will continue to function, and we're committing publicly to play this critical role in ensuring that there is a backstop. At the same time, Paradigm, which is a large, well, I was to say it was like a multi-$100 million venture fund. After yesterday, who knows what that number is, but they and Dragonfly had taken a big position in MKR a few months back, and Charlie Noyes there, I think, led them in the declaration that they would provide, I believe, at minimum $5 million backstop to participate in the auction. So I don't know what price that is, what price they want to do it. I believe based on the numbers that were put out there publicly, they had bought in their initial tranche, I want to say around like 475, 500, something like that. So regardless, they're like, sounds like they'll probably be lowering their cost basis. It'll be interesting knowing that they're there. I mean, I think I would assume that they can get in something like, in the 200 to 300 range. They'd probably be pretty excited if they have the confidence that they're willing to participate in the auction. So I wouldn't expect it to drop below that. I don't think we're going to see significant additional cratering, but again, do your own research, not financial advice. I think it's fascinating. It's awesome to see that the system thus far has survived, even though there have been things not functioning how we'd like. It's really cool to see this testing happening live. And frankly, I'm we're long MKR as a fund, and I think that the MKR system is supposed to be much bigger. I'm glad that we are stress testing it now. I wish it were not under such crazy circumstances, but it's awesome to see these features getting put to the test, so that to the extent there are any problems, we figure it out now. When there's 100 million something DAI in circulation, and not potentially in the future when there's like billions of DAI in circulation. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm actually curious to see how this all goes out. I know you said like if something was to go really south, there's the potential for the emergency shutdown. And if that were to happen, I think that would be a pretty big deal for MakerDAO. I mean, you would lose a lot of reputation. Think of all the people that have vaults open, right? And they might sure they'll have get what they're owed, but they could lose the amount of ether they're holding or want to hold for the future. So they might kind of hold it against MakerDAO, and it could create a lot of chaos. So
I think that's absolutely the case. I mean, if you look at what has happened in terms of like the zero DAI auctions for the ETH collateral, like some people have gotten wiped out. It's pretty bad. I feel sorry for them. Actually, I've got a couple like very small vaults, like sub $100 vaults that I haven't even like checked on to see if they got liquidated. Yeah, I think it's gonna. Those people are still out of luck. Like this doesn't help them, which sucks. And another reason to be glad that this happened at a relatively small scale. But yeah, I think, I mean, it would be interesting if my understanding from the governance call yesterday was that there was not any appetite on behalf of MK holders to like compensate those vault owners. I am actually a little surprised I didn't hear any more buzz around that, because it seems like the system did not function as expected. I mean, maybe it functioned as expected, but there's network factors like the high congestion and high gas prices and stuff that may have helped cause that. Who knows? Somebody knows. I have not followed closely enough to understand exactly what enabled that to happen. But yeah, it would be, in my view, better if it was like, yeah, we're standing behind those folks as well. Even though this is standing behind the system as a whole, it's not standing behind individual vault holders who got screwed.
Real quick, we got about 8 minutes left. I do want to mention too, yesterday during the chaos, there was the time where the price oracles or price feeds, they didn't update for longer than they should have. So, you know, people were able to exit their vaults, even though they maybe weren't supposed to be able to and stuff. So was that all, you know, did that come down to the actual gas fees and stuff, as far as the price fee not updating right away? Or what was the reasoning?
I think that's my understanding, is that yeah, it wasn't updating because like the oracle wasn't paying enough gas, and so it wasn't making it on chain. Yeah, I've not confirmed that to the point that comes in like that was the cause, but that was my initial understanding, and it seems plausible.
All right, cool. Well, I'm not seeing any questions or anything anywhere, so
Yeah.
hopefully we can end it there. Thank you so much, though, for sharing.
Absolutely. Thanks for hosting this, guys. This is a really cool event. I think we'll be seeing more like this for the next little bit, and hopefully this community can keep growing.